in the presence and focused on the Lord. Yeah. So first question is, when did you notice it today? And now you know a little bit about your state coming into your spiritual formation this morning. I'm just kidding. But this is a struggle I always have. I just want to be vulnerable with you. I joked with the guys that get the title for the message, for the streaming and all that good stuff, that I always wrestle with the sermon titles. For several reasons. I have sometimes a bit of a creative unction, and I want to do a good job with that. But here's the problem: is that everything these days turns into clickbait, right? So, and I'm not just judging those of you that are young and sprite, and you're living in LA, maybe single, or not bound by any responsibilities in the same way that others of us that have made other significant life decisions, whether on purpose or by accident, are living in. Myself, multiple children, as I mentioned too many times, every message. I don't get the chance to wake up and go, what am I going to listen to or go to church today or whatever else. There's a dynamic where I was remembering in San Diego, this is when Sue and I just gotten married. We were part of a local church, but we would often kind of just, decide on a Sunday if we were doing something else, what we might listen to, right? A podcast. They had podcasts back then, but you had to download it in advance, right? Or you had an automatic one on your iPod or whatever, right? Anyone remember that? No one cares? Okay. So we would maybe go listen to a podcast, but what do you end up doing? You, even back then, many, many years ago, you're still scrolling to be like, what's the title that I feel like it's going to feed my soul today, right? And so we do the same thing. What's good about all of you is that some of you might be here because you saw a catchy title whenever we posted that. Most of you are not. It's because this is your home, right? And the reality is that, but I'm tempted. My title today, does Jesus have a better offer than the cult of self? I don't know if I love that title or hate that title. I don't know if it's too long, too catchy, or perfect. I would say probably half of you at least are like, what the heck is he talking about? It's so long. What cult of self? That's so. But here's the thing. If I would have titled this just like how the Bible titles things, it was so boring and it would be so nice and perfect and whatever else. Books, if you've ever seen a book, they title it and then you read it and it's something completely different because they had to get you to buy the book first to give you the information. That's just the tension I feel like we're in even in this little setting. But what I want to do is not be too consumed with clickbait and convincing you to listen to the message, those of you that are obviously already here. It's to get at the root. If I could pick a title for this message, it's Would You Die Already? But I just felt like that's just terrible clickbait. Depressing, not hopeful. But I really feel like that's actually what Jesus is trying to do here. Would you die already? Man, you're quiet. I'm going to need some more affirmation. I'm still an insecure person in process. I don't have the confidence in Christ yet to go through this whole message with no interaction with you, please. So, okay. We're all in process. So would you die? Would you die already? It is good news. It is good news. The problem is if you don't consider yourself dead, then you haven't quite responded to Jesus' invitation. Let me just start reading because I can tell I'm about to go on to too many rabbit trails. Verse 13 of chapter 16 of Matthew says this. Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, we'll talk about that's a very specific area that he is going to on purpose because Jesus is given an ancient PowerPoint presentation to his disciples from afar to the region of Caesarea Philippi. He asked his disciples, his own disciples, his intimate followers, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Referring to himself. And they said, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. These are all normal sayings to really highly respected prophets or ministers of the kingdom in that day. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? And so the tension is immediately not just what are the vibes out there, what are people saying, what's the clickbait on who I am. It's I want to know who the followers closest to me actually say that I am. Have you started to understand who I am? Simon Peter responds, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And that's the first affirmation of Christ's identity in the entire gospel. We're in chapter 16, by the way. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah. He uses a specific name. For flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. So he's even emphasizing in this moment, you've started to understand who I am, but you couldn't even do that in your own human strength. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. The real Greek is shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven, meaning that these things are done in heaven. Now live them out here on earth. Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. So he's basically saying, you're starting to get it, but you still don't really know what you're doing and what you're saying. So why don't you hold back a little bit? And Jesus' wisdom is affirmed by the next couple sentences and lines. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things. Everyone say, suffer. Jesus wants us to suffer. No one wants to say that? Jesus wants us to? Many things. Many things. Go to Jerusalem, suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside. Peter took him aside. Now, Peter's leader. This is the most severe 180 that you will see in the entire Bible. Peter acknowledges that he's the Son of God, the first one. Now, all of a sudden, Jesus talks about suffering, and Peter's like, whoa, let me take you aside, Rabbi. Let me show you some things now that I'm Simon Bar-Jonah, the rock. Let the rock tell you what's up. Let me tell you what the rock is cooking. 4 of you got that reference. Okay. Pulls him aside. Peter does not like what Jesus just said. And Peter rebukes him. Rebuke is as strong a language as the Bible knows how. We just hear rebuke. Rebuke. It's a nice little word. Rebuke. It's like a fight with words. Rebuke is I'm going to stand my ground, defy you. And that's what Peter is doing to the Son of the living God. Son of the living God, let me take you aside. Let me defy you. Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you. You don't know what you're talking about. No, you're not going to do this. This isn't going to happen. And then Jesus turned to Peter and gives the same rebuke to Peter that he gave to the devil in Matthew 4, the beginning of the gospel. Get behind me, Satan. You're a hindrance to me. And here's really the only thing we're getting at because we're going after discipleship. He tells him that for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. There's always 2 options. There's always 2 trees in the garden. There's good and evil. And good people can live out evil doctrine, evil ways, while still being good people. You can partner with mindsets that are useless, meaningless, and lead to darkness while being an amazing human being. And Peter acknowledges that this is the Son of God, the first one. He's an early adopter. And yet he's still, when Jesus tells him exactly why he's the Son of God, what he's come for, and outlines his mission, Peter rejects it completely and doesn't get it. And Jesus defies him completely. And so how are we to look at this as disciples? We're in a series on discipleship. We're calling it disruptive discipleship in a secular age. All that means is we are inviting Jesus to disrupt us in our pursuit of him. Discipleship is just, who are you following? We're all disciples of something. Christians are disciples of Jesus. That's it. That's all we're doing. We're learning to follow him, die for him, and then be raised up and live for him. And when you consider yourself already dead, there's nothing this world can take from you because the ultimate thing that life has over you is life and death. And the gospel says that this is not the end, and therefore the way of Jesus cannot come under the way of the world. The way of the world always comes under the way of the kingdom. And he demonstrates that in his life, death, and resurrection. And as he tries to tell his disciples a piece of what his mission is, they don't understand it. And the way this hit me is I realized that I still don't get this. I still, in my discipleship, don't fully understand that the gospel of Jesus, the cross and the resurrection, is something so significant that I have to continually, daily understand and live in and step in and take risk to see, does this actually work and will I actually live this out? Or am I a hindrance to Jesus because I'm ultimately trying to resist his way? What Peter shows us is the most committed one that sees Jesus for who he is can still have an entire way of life that's a hindrance to his mission. That's sobering. More of that in a second. But what are we doing with discipleship in this moment? All we're doing, discipleship is the intentional process of becoming like Jesus by countering the cultural forces that shape us and then actively living in his way. That's it. But here's the thing. I heard Simon Sinek gave this analogy of choice, and I found it helpful. He talked about the shoe salesman here in Los Angeles in the 50s that had a women's shoe store. Any of you still shop at women's shoe stores? Just curious. Is it all online? Or are there still shoe stores in LA that you go to? What would they be? Who goes to a shoe store? What are they called? No. Okay, DSL, Nordstrom's. Just curious. For some of you significant others, first time hearing about this? Or it's just no, whatever. So the shoe salesman, he had this incredible intuition to not just the mind of a woman, but to the mind of decision making. He goes, "This is what happens. A lady would walk into the store. Could I please try this on? Sure. Here you go. And could I try this one on? Sure. Here you go. And could I also try this one on? Sure. Which one would you like to take back?" Because he goes, if you give them 3 choices, they will choose none. If you give them 2 choices, they will choose 1. Only give them 2 choices. Now, before any of you consider me a sexist that just thinks that women have a small brain or something like that, the application, I'm not saying that, first of all. I think if we're talking about a simple brain, that's the male brain. I was bombasted with the idea that women would benefit or think that way too. That's because I'm always thinking that way. Just give me 2 choices, right? We are bombarded with choice. With our pursuit of freedom, we want the restrictions. We want to get rid of anything that limits our ability to have choice. And yet, we all understand that too much choice is overwhelming. The gospel is always simple. God always makes it simple for his people. Again, from the garden, there's 2 trees. There's good and evil. Follow me or follow the way of the world. The way of the world isn't evil humans. The way of the world are mindsets, worldviews, and perspectives that lead to death ultimately. And the way of the kingdom leads to life. And what he's inviting us into is a mindset, perspective, and worldview that leads to life, and yet we live in a world that has perspectives that influence ours, and sometimes in the name of, Jesus, you're the Son of God, I follow you, I'll die for you, and then we find out, well, until they're suffering, and we find that Peter is still dealing with this up until the night that Jesus is betrayed. He still cannot live into what he says he's going to. I'll die for you. He says that later in the Gospels, right? And then, of course, he denies him 3 times. And he almost cannot take the shame that comes with that. And Jesus restores him. And he becomes the leader of the church that transforms the earth. So we're going after a kind of discipleship that has 4 aspects to it. Imitating Jesus, from not just belief to actually following him. That's intentional in our formation, where we actually practice intentional rhythms and practices that shape the heart, mind, soul, and enter alignment with his ways. That's why we're going after things like fasting, scripture, prayer, and we're going to be going through others throughout the year. Countercultural living. We have to understand that following Jesus means living against the cultural norms of individualism of our secular age, consumerism, superficiality, all these things, and saying, how in the midst of this do I demonstrate and live into another realm, into another world? And then finally, we have to live in an accountable community. If we don't, then we're still just trying to do this Jesus stuff on our own. And the hard part about that is when you come in and under an accountable community, we screw this up royally. Royally. I love it when churches have just like, whether it's a vision board or they have a night where everyone just like posts wonderful things that have happened to them or things the Lord's done in their life. I think I have nightmares of like if we had one where everyone posts like the hurt from the church, this like church that still happened despite the fact that you're here and you love it, and then I'd have to like read and process each one. I think that's my worst nightmare. Because it's a reality. We are so imperfect. As amazing as much as I love this community and I'm so proud to be a part of it, and it just boggles my mind that we get to do this in this moment of history. We have so many flaws, so many issues, and at the end of the day, when we ask you to be accountable to a community, we're basically saying, would you risk being hurt and trust Jesus anyway, right? But that's what any relational depth is ever. Whether you're talking about marriage or a significant other or even a family relationship, it doesn't matter. If you want deep relationship with anyone, you have to risk some measure of risk and trust that that person can let you down and hurt you. And they will. That's the promise. And Jesus is saying, you're going to be let down, you're going to suffer, you're even going to die. And the good news is it's not the end. So here's what we want to do. Let's look at a couple of things that come out of this passage. I've already touched on some of them. And then what do we respond and what do we do about it? So in verses 13 to 20, Jesus is at this point at the beginning of the passage, he's still a positive figure among the wider followers that are interested in him and following him. But he's pressing the disciples for their response, and he's always upping the standard for his disciples. He's not letting them just have some sort of surface level understanding of who he is, and yet he's patient and gets that they're in process and that this is not perfect. So again, this is the first acknowledgement of Peter of saying that this is the Messiah, massive deal. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. This is even a shift from what he said about him just a few chapters before in Matthew 14. And this isn't just, let me just read you what R.T. France says in his commentary on Matthew. He says, in contrast to the title, Son of God, this demonstrates that Peter has finally come to a deep and personal recognition of Jesus' unique relationship to the Father. So it's a huge, huge deal. This is massively significant because it indicates that Peter, apparently the first to do so among the disciples, sees in Jesus something that goes beyond some merely nationalistic fervor. That's to even put this in context to maybe modern day. It's not just a nationalistic fervor to an awareness of Jesus' special relationship with God. So he's starting to get that this is bigger than just some Jewish thing, and this is something that God is on. And then we see his name, the Rock. Peter, you are Peter. When he says you are Peter, that's paralleling that you are the Christ. So it's like Jesus is saying, since you can tell me who I am, Peter, I'm going to tell you who you are. And he calls him out. And again, there's this picture I think we have back there of Caesarea Philippi, or you don't know what it is if you're doing the slides, but there's a picture of this geographic location. There you go. Sue and I had the privilege of going there a couple times on tours to Israel. This area is one of our favorite spots. It doesn't take long to go there, but you should know. Here's a couple tidbits from my notes on this place. It's the capital of Herod Philip, where there were a bunch of Herods. It was also colonized at one point by Alexander the Great. Beautiful place, but it was a very pagan place. There were like no Jews in there. It was very fertile, and therefore they thought that the fertility god actually worked because of how fertile this place was. So there was a spring. You can see the little kind of divot hole in the rock, that dark place. There's a spring in there, so you can literally see exactly the geography that what they saw in the ancient world. And there was a belief in resurrecting the fertility god back to life every year, and they had all kinds of, parades and ceremonies and things of that nature. Pan was the name of that god. It was a statue that was a 6-foot-tall phallic object, for lack of a better term. So don't spend too much time thinking about that. We're at church, after all. They would parade this object throughout the land, and the men would sacrifice to it by pleasuring themselves. That's the kind of town they were in. So to a Jew, they'd also have prostitutes and priests having sex with goats and all kinds of other animalistic, beautiful acts of worship. And many believe this place would never exist at the same time as Jesus Christ, the Son of God, like right next door. But this is right on their path towards Jerusalem. So he stops, says they came to this area, and Jesus chose to give this speech and have this exchange with Peter here. Who do you say the Son of Man is? On this rock. This was known as the rock. And this was also known as the gates of Hades, because they thought it had access point to this underworld. And Jesus is saying, on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail. In this exchange with Peter, it's also the first use of the term ecclesia, which is the Greek term for assembly, church, or gathering in the Gospels. So in this moment, Peter is promised that he will become the foundation on which Christ is going to build the church. The point is this: Jesus is encouraging his disciples that no matter how his ecclesia, his church, may be attacked in a given place or a given time, his church can never be extinguished and will never permanently be defeated. He's promising endurance forever. And he's making as bold a statement as he can possibly make. And then verse 19, it shows how Jesus is building this church on Peter, the keys of the kingdom, talking about authority to bind and loose. Really, all this is referring to is an opening to the entrance of God's kingdom through their witness and the preaching and the apostolic ministry that they have. But here's what I'm fascinated with. He tells them not to tell anybody. This happens throughout the Gospels on several occasions. In this one, why does he tell them not to tell anybody? I think the best rationale is Peter and the others' views of Jesus is still inadequate. They still don't fully get it, number one. So number one, they don't fully get it. It's inadequate, their view. So if they went around telling everyone, they would be kind of partially telling the gospel. They would not say you know something because you can regurgitate the accurate information like we do today. Oh, I took the class, I passed the test, I got an A. I therefore know physics. No, you don't. Yeah. It's going to give some personal examples, such as I don't remember one thing I ever took a test on. Some of you might. I don't. Just because you took a test on something and aced it doesn't mean you know anything. The Jewish understanding of knowing meant that as a disciple, that you lived it out. And in this context, a rabbi would affirm you that this disciple knows the gospel. And he's basically saying they don't know the gospel. And yet he's affirming Peter that this is a big breakthrough. Second, Peter's not yet prepared for the road to the cross any more than he was the night it occurred. Meaning, he doesn't know it, and he's not ready for it. So why does Jesus tell them not to tell anyone? Because they still don't know what they're talking about, and they're still not ready to live in what he's putting on offer. And third, this is shown in the verses that I haven't read, but go right after. Neither Peter nor any of the disciples recognize and understand that Jesus' death will precede the establishment of the church, and that Jesus' followers are going to suffer before God's kingdom triumphs. So it's a big deal. Now, looking at the final couple of verses, you see that the issue then that they're bringing up is exposed. Peter cannot see past the need of Jesus' suffering or his own suffering. Jesus is promising that this is going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. And I think often, even today, we look at the modern world, and what we're trying to do is to eliminate and minimize suffering as much as possible. The heart of that can be as good as it gets. When Christians are trying to minimize other people's hurting and suffering and injustice, that's exactly what the gospel should lead us to do. However, with this obsession of minimized suffering leads us to a life where we're trying to avoid challenges, avoid pain, avoid sitting in the darkness of life, and feeling like we don't, if I enter into this, I don't know if I can survive it, or that thinking that means that we're off or we're wrong. You've missed the gospel. The gospel takes people into the dying, into the suffering, into the unknown, into the my life is not my own stuff. And that's where the dreams that we have kept going back to over the last season. How do we dream? How do we dream big dreams, God-sized dreams, kingdom dreams, and at the same time say, I'm going to die today, again. But I'm a dreamer. I've got big dreams. God's given me so many dreams about dying, death, pain. I just feel like I still don't fully get the tension. And the ugly side of the church is when you stop dreaming and you just live in death and depression. That's not the gospel. It's just that your dreams have to be bigger than your own life. The key to know whether you're dreaming accurately is that your dreams could not possibly be contained in your own life. And your death might be the catalyst for your dreams to explode. Every great leader, if they had a dream worth dying for, and they died, the dream went on. And that works outside the kingdom of Jesus. If that's just a tidbit of the way that the world works, imagine this gospel. And if every single one of our dreams was connected to this reality, if I couldn't tell you the dreams of my life apart from the gospel, and that I'd be willing to lay my life down for these dreams, then you know you're getting somewhere, because this world and this life and this body cannot enslave you to your dreams and keep you from them. And your life then becomes the place that you sow the seeds towards those dreams, and your dream is big enough and it's extending into a place of eternity where it will take generations to live it out. And that's really hard, because that's so overwhelming, and that's so impossible, and that's kind of the point. Our dreams are meant to be impossible. The kingdom, if you think that you can control and dictate your life in the kingdom of Jesus, you simply have not understood how good, how massive, how significant his plans are and his dreams are for you. Peter can't see past the needs of his own suffering. He makes an about face. He rebukes Jesus, and then Jesus rebukes him. You know, my little one, my 4-year-old, it's amazing to me how she can, in one moment, we just had a moment this week. We got a truck for the church to haul this big trailer in every week, and it's a hideous truck. It's all bent up. I bought it from a construction site, and she loves the truck. Every time I take her out there, just to move it around or something, she wants to sit in the front seat, right? And she just tells me literally 75 times a minute, Daddy, I love the truck. Daddy, I love this truck. I love this truck. And she calls it my truck. I love my truck, Daddy, or our truck, something like that. She says over and over again, I love our truck, Dad. I love this truck. And she found, in the midst of that, I don't know, she found some loose change. And she's just so excited. It's she's in the truck, and then she finds some change and goes, hey, can I use these pennies? And they were all quarters. Can I use these pennies to go to Dank Donuts and ride the rides? Because there's this donut place in Big Bear called Dank Donuts. I haven't been there. It is phenomenal. I break all of my fasting and dietary convictions for Dank Donuts in Big Bear. And so there's these old school rides that just a pony that just does this for it doesn't even go straight. It just kind of does this for 45 seconds, and the 4-year-old thinks that's phenomenal. She's been to Disney. She's been to every theme park Los Angeles has, but the broken down pony ride at the Dank Donuts in Big Bear Lake, California, that's her dream. And so she's just getting excited about everything. I love this truck. I love this pennies. You said we can go riding, Dad. I love you, Daddy. I love you over and over and over again. All the love. And I'm just we've just done such a good job with this one. I just, life is complete. I love her so much. 5 seconds later, I don't know what happened. I mean, a sibling like took a penny, and I hate you. The purity of her love, the passion of her hate. In one moment. And I think I'm above that. I'm exactly the same. I just spiritualize it because my theology is so good. Bless their heart. That's how we were learned. I grew up in the South. When you hate someone, you just say, bless their heart. That means I'm not allowed to curse them, so I will bless them with a curse. Curse of spirit, bless of mouth. You don't know what I really mean, but everyone does. And that's just me trying to process my old self with my new self's verbs, language. Not everything. I mean, James talks about the power of the tongue. Yeah, the tongue can be deceitful. It can say the right thing with the wrong spirit. Ugh. Peter said the right thing and then the wrong thing with the right spirit and then the wrong spirit. I want to read to you what Jesus' encounter with the enemy was in Matthew 4, early in the Gospels. This is when Jesus is being tempted in the wilderness and fasting. So it connects perfectly to our practice. Jesus said to the devil, again it is written, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test. Again the devil took Jesus to a very high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. Then Jesus said to him, begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him alone shall you serve. Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. So Peter's words here in the chapter that we're in aggressively protest against what Jesus has said about his death and resurrection. But the point is this, Jesus is calling out the same thing in Peter as he just called out in the devil. The devil is trying to get Jesus the easy path to what he came for. Just bow down and worship, and you don't have to go through all the suffering. I'll just make it real easy for you. The devil just wants the human desire. I just want to be worshiped. And what Matthew is so brilliantly doing here is basically showing us that Peter is us. We say with our lips that this is king. And yet the reality is when we're confronted with the realities of following the king, we really don't want it. We don't want the pain. We don't want the hardship. We don't want the suffering. But the beauty is that this isn't the end of the Gospels. This isn't the end of Peter's story. And it's not the end of yours, and it's not the end of mine. Look face to face with our capacity to buckle when we're confronted with suffering. That's the point. What will you do when you're confronted with suffering? Now, the only thing that we need is a friend, my friend Jim Cavell, who we just had dinner with this week, was wearing a hat to dinner Wednesday, and the hat just said, I'm already dead. He had the audacity to give me credit for that. Like I had that in a sermon that he heard a while back. I don't even remember. So it probably wasn't me. He's getting old, so maybe he's just selective memory. But I like the phrase and I like the hat. And if you can find that merch, we'll sell it out here for like discount, no profit. I just want people to understand I'm already dead is the gospel. I'm already dead is what I get up every day and confront every challenge in life. I can face this because I'm already dead. What is consumed in that phrase? I can't raise myself. I can't breathe life on dead things. I can't consider myself dead to sin and alive to Christ, as Paul says. That's not possible. So the gospel's not possible. Therefore, I've surrendered to another story and another way. And therefore, there's hope because I'm not living under the weight of performance and achievement and everything else the secular lie wants to give me. There's a fresh worldview, and I'm already dead. And the good news is, all I have to do is follow him. I'm following him or I'm not. There's only two trees, there's only two choices. I'm following him or I'm not. Are you following him or are you not? And do your steps match your tongue? That's really the only thing happening here. Confront your heart. Look what you're stepping into. Check your mouth. Hunger for more. Would you stand? I want to pray. And the team can come up. We're going to worship into this. A few things for us to apply. You can close your eyes. You can just get in a comfortable state of just response. I want us to walk away today. We have two choices, but I want you to step into just one. Worldviews matter. Theology matters, but theology doesn't matter because we have to have the right words. Theology matters because what you believe will dictate your actions. And the problem that we have is that we have believers that declare one thing and have the best theology, and yet their feet don't follow. Myself included, this is a daily task of getting up and surrendering to the way of Jesus, that his story is better than mine, and that I want to live a life of dreams that can't be fulfilled in my lifetime. That doesn't mean you don't set goals and 5-year plans and all of those things. It's just that's not the preeminent. That's not the ultimate. That's just a piece of how I set up both my daily life, my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan. I believe in all of it. A fresh mission statement for your family. We were processing that this week. It's all of that stuff, that bigness, these dreams are so good. You should do that for your career. You should do that for your relationships. All that's great. But your ultimate dream has to connect with this gospel and this cross. And it has to start with, I'm already dead. And I'm constantly learning to put the worldview of the kingdom and the worldview currently of this world, which is an individual, self-centered cult of self, focused on eliminating suffering. And the gospel says, follow me into it and trust me in the process. And maybe God isn't punishing you. He often doesn't bring the suffering to you. He uses it. And if you reject him in the wilderness of your suffering, you miss out at knowing where God is. You keep looking for him in the promised land, and he's still waiting for you in the wilderness to show up for you and to be with you in your pain. The Spirit led Jesus into the wilderness. He didn't wait for him in the promised land. Some of us, that's just a mindset shift right now. You think he's waiting for you somewhere that you aren't. And he's with you right now. And he wants to know you. And he wants to lift up your eyes. And he wants to be with you in the process. Holy Spirit, we invite you, shift our worldview right now in Jesus' name. Renew our minds, renew our hearts. So invite this team to lead us, and then I want to close with another moment. But as we worship, I want you to see how Jesus' tone here is so intense. But remember, so much of our problem as Christians and the clickbait that's out there in the hemispheres that makes me cringe is when Christians lose the tone of Jesus. And it's not because Jesus was kind and nice all the time. Jesus was so compassionate and patient to the marginalized. He's fragile with them. He calls them friend, daughter, child. But then to the religious leaders, he's calling them hypocrites and vipers. He uses his most intense language here in all the Gospels. His most intense language is to his disciples. It's the worst thing he said to anyone is right here. Sometimes the harsh voice of Jesus is what we need because he's calling you higher to another way.